afternoon, everyone. My name is Daniel. I play Oubar in the game Gemstone 4. Welcome to another round of interview sessions. Interview sessions are a series of interviews that I am hosting with Gemstone 4 players and regarding their characters in a way to sort of let us all get a little deeper insight. I'm very excited about today's guest. I will throw it to you to introduce yourself however you like.
Hi, Terry. I play Rohese. Yes, it's Rohese.
Rohese, yes. Even though in my brain it's always going to be Rohese, I will do my very best to make sure and say Rohese.
I'll explain why later.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. So, as you've seen some of these previous ones, the first half we're going to do add a character. Add a character, I'm speaking to you, the player. I'm not looking for Rohese's insights or views. I'm talking to you, the person. And I'll let you know when we switch over to in character, and then we'll get more kind of deep into the character stuff. If at any point you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to pull me up short, and I'm happy to clarify anything that I need to. Sound good?
Sure. Yeah, sounds
Excellent.
good.
Okay, starting off nice and easy. When and why did you start playing Gemstone?
Probably the same as most other people who've played it this long. I found it on AOL.
Okay.
I was living in the US at the time. We'd moved over for a couple of years, and I had no work visa. Real shame.
Okay.
So I had plenty of time on my hands. Stumbled across it and played it for about a year.
Okay.
And then we moved back to the UK, and I completely forgot about it, to be honest, and lost that character. So yeah, 96 probably.
Okay. So you lost that character, and then at some point, obviously, you came back to us.
I did.
So what brought you back?
Okay, so it must have been about 6 years later. I was living down here in the South Coast and got very interested in medieval history and fantasy novels. So I was reading quite a bit. And I stumbled across this one book, and it had a character called Rohese in it. And she wasn't a significant character in the book at all. She was, a very big character, but there was something about her, and her name was Rohese Bayvel, which is where I get my name from.
Nice.
So fictional. But at the same time, there's a castle very close to me, Corfe Castle, which again is medieval, rich in history. And I was doing reading about that and stumbled across Rohese de Clare, who was an actual true character, again in the 12th century. And her history was amazing, and it tied back to my childhood place where I lived in Wales, and the connections were all there. And for some reason, the game came back in my head, and I thought, I need to bring this character alive. So obviously I thought the game wasn't even going to be around anymore, but there it was. So
there it was.
I rolled her up, and she's still going strong 20 years later.
Excellent.
And I've got an interesting story actually with that, because about a year into playing, I'm sitting in Tarvalor, which was her starter town, and this girl, I don't know who she was, whispered out a character to me. She said, "Your name?" She said, "Rohese." And I was, "Yeah." She said, "I am actually an ancestor of the Rohese de Clare family."
Wow.
So we got talking for hours, and I cannot believe to this day I actually met somebody who's the direct descendant of Rohese de Clare.
That's amazing.
I know, it blew my mind.
How random is that?
I know. Wow. So it's meant to be.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. So in your time from when you initially decided you wanted to bring this character to life and bring her into existence in the game, have you taken any breaks since then? And, talk to me about that. If you've taken any breaks, kind of what predicated them, what brought you back, that sort of thing.
Not really. I mean, I've stepped back and not played for short periods of time, when life takes over. Sure. I had one break in about 2018, I think it was, where I had so much going on. I just thought I can't handle it. So, but I kept in touch. That's when I started doing Elanthian Vogue. So nice. I was, still reading about what was going on in the game and engaging with people, but it was all out of character engagement. But kept involved until I could come back. Yeah. So yeah. So I've been around for 20 years.
Absolutely. Okay, so what, in your opinion, why do you think Gemstone has lasted for as long as it has? You said you had the expectation that it just wouldn't even exist when you tried to come back, but of course it
Yeah,
did, and here we are, all these
yeah.
years later. Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's lasted as long?
Because I think you can create a really unique character. If you play other games, those characters are defined for you, and you have to pick within their set criteria. Yes, you
Sure.
have to choose professions and whatever, but you can build a truly unique character to role play with, and Gemstone allows you to tell that story, and it's constantly evolving and constantly changing, and you have to interact with it. And I just love that aspect of it, and I think that's probably why we all keep coming back.
I tend to agree. I tend to agree. Okay, putting you on the spot a little bit here. You are now in charge of Gemstone for 1 week. I would like for you to give me one thing that you would add and one thing that you would remove, and your reasons why for each of those, please.
Okay, they're easy questions actually, because I think the
Okay.
first thing I would want to do is build the Weir Deep.
Okay.
I know that's probably very ambitious to do in 1 week. So let's just say I'll build an enclave in the Weir Deep, because
Okay.
that whole area just fascinates me. And I know
Okay.
how much there are other characters I play with, like Merc and Akenna, who their whole history is around the Weir Deep. And I just think it would be a perfect place to actually be able to visit.
Okay.
So that would be my passion project, I think.
I like
So
it.
yeah. And what I would get rid of is probably the nodes.
Really?
Yeah, because I think that they don't serve a purpose anymore. They probably
Okay.
did a while back, but I find that it encourages people to go AFK in public places. And
Sure.
that's not really what they were for. So either get rid of them completely or move them where people are more encouraged to step away, go to a
Okay.
quieter place, and not, because it's so difficult to show up in a public place and try and engage with people, and you're met with silence. So
Yes, absolutely. A
it's
couple things.
disheartening.
Absolutely, it is. A couple things related to that here, going a little off script, but
Okay.
two things I wanted to throw at you. So, just because I find that really interesting that what you're saying about the nodes. So, most major towns at this point have at least 5 supernodes in them, and a lot of other
Yeah.
smaller nodes and things like that. So, and like, so my characters live in Icemeal, always have, always will. That Icemeal is home for me. And so I can think there are 2 or 3 really out of the way supernodes that are a long way away from anybody, and they're almost
Okay.
never used. Why do you think that
Okay.
is?
Probably because the information's not shared very well. People are
Okay,
always asking on Discord, where are the nodes? And it's not up to date on the wiki.
I see. I see.
I mean, I wouldn't know where any of them are, to be perfectly honest. And it's only
Okay,
by actually encountering people that have gathered there that I would
sure.
think to myself, oh, actually, it probably is. So,
Okay, okay. I can see that. And then the other sort of thing that cropped up in my mind as you were talking through, so there was a suggestion put forth on Discord, maybe a week ago, week and a half ago, something like that, where a player said, "Look, instead of having these nodes be just a single room, why don't we make all of in town a
yeah,
node, the entire?"
that would make
And
sense.
that that would be something that
Yeah,
would kind of go along the same lines as you're talking about, sort of
yeah,
removing that tendency for the AFK people to cluster together and you
yeah.
create this kind of wall of silence.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
to me, I don't see the personal appeal of being on a node, because +1 to my experience doesn't do it for me. But I
Sure.
can
Sure.
understand why people want to do that if they're obviously a maxer player. So
Yeah.
give them the node if that's what they want. But let's find a place where it's a balance.
Sure. Sure. I can see that.
Yeah.
Okay. For this next question, I just want to clarify that again, we're still in I'm looking for your response, you as the player, not as
Okay.
your character or anything like that. So, what is your favorite memory as a player, a person sitting there at the keyboard from your time in Gemstone? And tell that story for me if you would.
Does anybody listening to your other videos be thinking about this one actually? And there
Okay.
was one that really came to mind, and I thought I have to share this story. It was very early on when the Spitfire first arrived.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And Rohese is based over in Tarvalor and has never really left it at that point. And we hear about this pirate ship arriving, and I'm very excited as a player to actually, have my first festival to start with. And
Sure.
then to hear that it's way over on the other side I've never been, you know, the furthest I've ever been was Tower and this is the days before scripts and go-to and
Oh
maps,
yeah,
and everything was all on paper. So it was quite an exciting feeling, actually. And
absolutely it
you know,
is.
it was a bit like, ooh, what are we going to do? And there were a group of us in Tarvalor that hung out quite a lot. And we decided we were going to make an expedition of it. So we all
Okay.
sort of set off together. And you'd laugh now, but it took 3 hours for us to get there. But it was the most fun we have ever had. You know,
Absolutely. Making
trekking.
that trek. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it was
I've
like
done
our
it.
own
I've done
Fellowship of the Ring. You know, it was that much fun, where you're all sitting in mine carts and role playing the whole way, and then falling off the rope bridge and not
Yes.
knowing where you were. And it was just, yeah, it was fun, and it's stuck in my memory. And then
That's
that whole
awesome.
week at that festival and coming back and doing exactly the same thing all the way back.
Hmm.
So yeah, that sticks in my mind as a player. To row, it's obviously it was insignificant, but
Sure, sure.
yeah,
Very nice. Very nice. I do remember that. I remember a similar experience my first time trying to make the walk. I was coming from the other direction, as I said, on
yeah,
an ice mule all the way. And my wife and I, actually my real life wife, I met her in game, and we were playing together at the time, and we were attempting to walk our first time going to the Elven Nations. And that stupid rope bridge, I we kept it was it
every
was
time.
it was fascinating because it was something that I'd never experienced. I didn't know,
Yeah,
it was completely new, and we couldn't figure it out. We could not figure out what the problem was. And of course, now these days, I understand
yeah,
completely what was going on. But at the time, it was just kind of you were
yeah,
completely engaged. You were completely in that moment, and that's a lot of
absolutely.
fun.
Yeah,
That's a lot of fun.
yeah. Playing the verb game, trying
Oh
to,
yeah,
to remember its shuffle.
yes, yes. Some people don't like the guess the verb games. I've never minded them personally,
Yeah,
but
I do. I like them actually.
okay, okay.
Yeah,
All right, so I'm going to switch stations here a little bit. Now I'm going to move over to in-character stuff. I'm looking for more Rohese's kind of responses. I'm not looking for you to role play as Rohese in any way, shape, or form,
good.
unless you'd like to.
Yeah,
I'm not
well, I'll
going to.
drink the tea.
But
Then
okay, okay, that's fair. Um, and there may be some things in here that maybe Rohese wouldn't necessarily answer if she was asked directly. For those, I appreciate you filling in the blanks for us, as long as it's
okay,
something that you are okay with being broadcast to everybody.
sure.
So you already kind of answered a good portion of my first one about your origin story for Rohase, but that was from the player side. From the
Yeah,
character side, where does the character come from? What's her origin story?
she is your stereotypical Tarialistim elf. So
Okay,
she's quite young. She's only just over 100 years old.
okay,
Born and raised there. Highly educated.
hmm,
She grew up there with her mother and father and her older sister, and everything was fine. She's not one of these tragedy stories, really, until it all started to go a bit wrong,
as
which
it
was
does.
about 20 odd years ago. And she had a falling out with her sister. I'm not going to go into the details of the falling out, but needless to
Okay,
say, she left home um, quite traumatized and unable to speak. So she was actually cursed by her sister.
okay,
And then that fits in with her being rolled up in Tarvalor. So she ended up in Tarvalor on a pilgrimage, really, to try and find peace. So she ends up living in the Cleric Guild in Tarvalor, which is where she becomes a cleric and finds Lumnis. And then that's
okay,
where her real journey started. So learning about herself and how to overcome her being mute, which she obviously has,
hmm,
and then developing from there and growing up essentially, because she was quite a spoiled, privileged young lady, shall we say, and
okay.
probably still is, prone to, I suppose, toddler tantrums really for an elf. So as yeah, many will
Okay,
attest to. But yeah, that's really her story. It's
okay,
still developing. She's changing. She's growing up.
absolutely, absolutely. So you touched on Lumnus and her staying at the Cleric Guild. What about Lumnus drew Rohese's attention? What about that called to her?
It was Lumnus who stepped in really to put her on a straight path, because she
Okay,
said she was traumatized. She didn't know what to do or how to deal with any of what she'd been through. And there was a voice really in her head that was guiding her to try and find her way through it. And to me, that's what Lumnus is about. She's not about giving answers. She's more about helping you to try and find your own answers. So I would say that Lumnus was always at the back of her mind as a guide, steering her to find the answers for herself. And
Very nice. I can see that.
yeah, still is really to this day. But
Okay.
the relationship has changed, or it's changing.
As they do.
Yeah.
Okay. So is Rohese currently married or otherwise romantically involved?
She is. She's very happily married and has been for 2.5 years.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it was, yeah, so 3 years ago she met him. It was
Okay.
quite a strange encounter because she didn't know who it was, but he was sending her anonymous poetry. So it was all very romantic. She would find letters and poems like on the bench in the dais, and she would find them on the shelves in the library in Mister Oubar. And this went on for quite a few weeks, and this wonderful poetry. And then this young man stepped forward and basically said, "It's me." So, and she'd raised him. She'd helped him one time on the dais, and he pursued her. So 6 months later, they got married, and they still are.
Very cool. That's a great
His name's
story.
Merc, by the way. And this goes back to the White Weird Ape in Borth, because that's where he comes from. So
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah.
What would Rohese say, or what would you say is Rohese's favorite place to be and why? And here, that can be a town, it can be someplace that even doesn't exist in game if there's something that's more that calls to her a little more strongly, or it can be a hunting ground, it can be a room. How would she answer that question?
She would probably say there are several places depending on her mood or her state of mind.
Okay.
She will go to the library if she finds she needs to be alone. But I would say her favourite place probably right now is her home in Kisagir.
I'm not even going to try.
I'm not going to debate that one. But so yeah, she has a home there. That's basically her marital home in Kisagir. So and that's where she escapes to.
Gotcha. What is Rohese fascinated by?
Oh, books.
Books.
Absolutely. Yeah, books. She can't have enough books in her life. So she's constantly got one in her hand, constantly got them in her bag, lugs them around everywhere with her. And she will always, that's where you'll normally find her, is in a library. So, but currently she's doing a lot of research into the sentience of trees. It's all very boring. But so leaves as well is another fascination. She'll often just pick up leaves that are on the ground and go to her books. So leaves and books.
What about, and if this is the same answer, that's fine, but to phrase it maybe a slightly different way, what is Rohese obsessed with?
Oh, her appearance, probably.
Okay.
She was brought up basically that you had to look good and behave properly and good manners, and so constantly obsessed with how she's behaving and how she looks, and it's vain. She's very vain.
Well, that's possibly true. Okay, what is Rohese's most treasured possession? And I believe I know the answer to that, but I'd like to hear you put the story on the record.
Yeah, it's a book, basically.
Sure.
Yeah, it's the first book that I ever really made, probably as an altar for me, and it evolved again like everything else, and through friends who kind of got to know Ro and kept making suggestions about this book, I've ended up easy scripting it. So it's full of easy scripts that really talk about Ro as a character. So yeah, the book has a basis in her story because it comes from her grandmother, who was really her icon, her idol. And the book is written about etiquette. So it's not a very easy read. It's quite dry. But what she's learned over the last couple of years, that is a palimpsest. So beneath that book on etiquette it's basically her grandmother's grimoire. So she's learning to be a witch through this book. So so she takes it everywhere with her and is learning about it.
That's awesome. Okay. Moving on here. What is Ro most scared of? What's her biggest fear?
Losing people she loves. She's lost her mum and her dad. She's lost her older sister, in all intents and purposes, because their relationship's broken down. She lost her first husband, and as I said, she's really young, so to lose those that are really key to her so early in her life, I think has made her very wary about losing people she loves.
Sure,
So.
absolutely. Okay, and then for the last of these, what is Rose searching for? And by that I mean I'm kind of looking for what you believe her end game is. At what point will she feel like she's at peace or has accomplished everything she's trying to accomplish?
Apotheosis.
Okay,
No, I'm kidding.
okay.
I'm kidding. She's not that vain.
Well,
No, I mean, whilst that would be wonderful, and that would be me saying, okay, sign off, I quit. She's done. She's one gemstone. I don't think she knows that there is no end game. So
okay,
she's got a long life to live. She's got a lot of the world to see.
sure.
So she'll take every day as it comes and just be grateful for what she's got.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay,
but if they want to give her apotheosis in the meantime as an ascension, then I'm not going to argue.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, I'm going to pivot here one last time. This
Okay.
is, I'm no longer in character. I'm speaking to you, the player. These are 10 questions that, full disclosure, were taken from inside the actor's studio, who took them from somewhere else. And these have
Okay.
become very popular and the sort of popular part of the popular vernacular at this point.
Okay.
But nice and easy. What's your favorite word?
I like onomatopoeic words.
Okay.
So cake or malevolence or something that's yummy.
Okay. I
It's,
gotcha.
yeah, it's typical.
Okay.
But let's go with cake, because I like cake.
That's a great answer. Great answer. What's your least favorite word?
It's probably the same as most people. It's moist. I really don't like it. I mean, that's probably an onomatopoeic word as well, but yeah.
But okay, that's fair.
Cringy.
What turns you on?
Oh, laughter, sense of
Oh,
humor. Yeah.
nice. What about what turns you off?
Confrontation. I can't bear it. I can't stand arguing, and no.
Sure. What's your favorite curse word?
You're going to make me say it, aren't you?
You don't have to if you don't want to, but you're
It's a,
certainly welcome to.
it's a very British thing as well, I've realised. It's
Okay.
wanker.
Okay. All right.
Yes,
What
I have often
sound?
been heard to say it in the car, but
Well, that's in the car that doesn't go on your record.
mm,
That's fine. That's fine.
when you gesticulate with it as well, it gives it extra feeling.
What sound or noise do you love?
Laughter.
Laughter. Yep.
Yeah.
What sound or noise do you hate?
There's a couple. But I think the one that really annoys me and others don't get is I can't stand female singers who go off in search of a note. When they wail. I just can't
I know
bear
exactly
it.
what you're talking about. I
Yeah.
know exactly what you're talking about.
There are
Can
very, very few female singers that I actually enjoy listening to, because they just go up and down and yeah.
Yeah,
So
don't seem to
just
have
hit the
a
note.
destination in mind. Yes,
Exactly.
I absolutely agree. You could not. I could not agree more if there were two of me.
Yeah.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
It's really, really boring. I'd like to own a bookshop or be a librarian.
Nothing boring about
No
that. That would be
surprise there,
wonderful.
really, I suppose. But
What profession would you not like to do?
anything in the medical profession.
Ooh, good
Yeah. I
answer.
mean, I'm
Good answer.
caring, yes, but dealing with illness and no, I'm very squeamish. So no.
Gotcha.
No.
Okay. Before I get to the 10th question here, I do have one wild card that I'm adding to this list that I'm going to slide in on you. Feel
Okay.
free to answer or not. We can always edit it out if we need to.
Okay.
But I read a book here recently where a character in the book asked another character what it was that they did. And the person being asked assumed that they meant their profession. And the person asking the question made it very clear that's not what you do. That may be how you earn money, but that's not what you do. So
Right.
if I'm putting the question to you, what is it that you do?
Outside of work, I'm a mum first and foremost.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's what I do.
Gotcha.
family.
Gotcha. Okay. And finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Probably something, it goes with a phrase I've heard about skidding in after a life of chocolate and wine. But I think what I'd like to hear is something like, you made it, but it was this close. So I know I've lived a life,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
not done too many bad things.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I like that one. Well, I believe that's it. That's what I have planned out. Is there anything that you would like to get on the record, or are you good?
I don't think so.
Okay. Thank
No,
you
I've
so
enjoyed
much
it.
for
Thank
doing
you.
this. I very much appreciate you taking the time to do this. You did great, by the way. Thank you
Thank you.
again. And I will let you know when this is going to get posted.
Thank you. Thank you very much for asking me. I'm honoured.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Take care.
Okay, bye.